Speaking of grinding the tape, we got Matthew Berry's ranks. The top 10 is in as always. This is free on NBC Sports. But let's start right here. Of course, number one, Berry, you've hinted at this one for a while with Justin Jefferson at the top, followed by Christian McCaffrey, Jamar Chase, Cooper Kupp, and Austin Eckler to round out the top five. I know you've spoken to this before as well. You landed with Jefferson, just absolutely in love with his fantasy floor this season.
Just, one of, if not the most talented wide receiver in the NFL, pass-happy offense, fantasy-friendly offense. No, Adam Thielen's gone, so that's 130 targets. Now, they're not all going to go to Justin Jefferson. I don't know if he even needs more targets. But honestly, I think losing Dalvin Cook actually helps Justin Jefferson because Madison's not going to be as effective. And so I always say this. You don't need to finish as the number one player in fantasy to be worth the number one overall draft. I just think the floor on Justin Jefferson is so high. He's going to – if he's healthy, the range of outcomes for Justin Jefferson is from wide receiver 1 to wide receiver 5. You're going to get high-end elite production from Justin Jefferson. Remember, 10 different games last year with over 100 yards. He led all players with games of 30-plus fantasy points or more. He had 7 different ones. I think Justin Jefferson is sort of chalk there. I actually think most of it is chalk. You could argue a little bit of Kupp over Chase. We talked about the other day. I moved Chase over Kupp just because of the injury that just happened at Kupp a little bit there. Look, if you wanted to move the running back down a little bit, there is a little bit of concern that when you look at the numbers between McCaffrey and when Elijah Mitchell was healthy, McCaffrey didn't get as much work. So, and there is, the injury history with McCaffrey, but in that offense, full year in Shanahan's offense, I feel like he's going to be efficient enough where the touches, I don't want to say the touches are irrelevant, but he doesn't need 20 touches to be worth the number one running back spot and number 2 overall.
As 6 through 10 is filled out with Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Stephon Diggs, Bijan Robinson, and, of course, ride or die amon-ra St. Brown. Jay, what jumps out to you in this top 10, particularly on the back end?
Yeah, well, I think the guy who makes me most nervous on the list and I think may slide into the back end at some point is Cooper Kupp. And it's not necessarily just the injury, though that's not great either. It seems like it'll be okay for week 1. Just this Rams team could be just an absolute disaster. You're going to play a game with a friend, figure out how much they know about the NFL. Ask them how many defensive players they can name on the Rams outside of Aaron Donald. Because if you name 3, you're doing pretty well. Try and guess that Russ Yeast is the free safety at the moment. So, look, I know that Kupp, he still put up numbers last year, but I would just worry that team is such a mess that he's not even playing the back end of the season if he has any niggles. But obviously he's got the talent.
Barry, when you look at go ahead.
Go ahead.
When you round out the top 10, I think you're higher on consensus than with Bijan Robinson and amon-ra St. Brown. Bijan being at 9. Now, he's a huge riser. He feels like a guy as we get more towards redrafts. He just keeps climbing and climbing and climbing. There will be people that take him as a top 2 or 3 running back. But what ultimately landed with you getting Bijan and both the Sun God in the top 10 here?
Honestly, I don't necessarily think I'm all that high on Bijan Robinson. I think he's more or less consensus top 3 running back. He's certainly top 5. And by the way, it's a little bit of again, if he went 5, if he went 6, if he went ahead of Tyreek Hill, if he went ahead of Travis Kelce, I get it. I think these are more or less the top 10 players that are going to be drafted this year, with the exception of Amon-Ra. I'll talk about him in 1 second. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked, especially as the drumbeat grows louder and louder, that Bijan keeps rising. We all agree he's going to have a monster year, and I don't think there's a secret there. I have Amon-Ra. Obviously, he's my fantasy ride or die. After crunching all the numbers, I feel the most solid about him at 10. Look, the people that could go at 10 that aren't there, I've seen Devontae Adams there. I've seen Nick Chubb there. So, I mean, CeeDee Lamb. I could certainly see any of those players there at 10, and those are guys that'll be in the the next top few after the top 10. But yeah, I mean, I feel better about wide receivers this year than I do about running backs. I think this is a pretty good year to go 0 RB or to wait on a running back. We feel better about the floor and the elite production from some of these wide receivers. There's just so many good wide receivers. And honestly, I do think there's a drop-off. After you get past, these wide receivers that you see, and then you're talking about CeeDee Lamb, and you're talking about A.J. Brown and Devontae Adams, and that sort of 8 to 10 list of wide receivers, I do think there's a significant drop-off. So I do think it's imperative this year more than previous years to have an elite wide receiver versus an elite running back. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and Rotoworld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, okay? Respectfully, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from Rotoworld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.